Welcome to Brea Talks, an insider's look into topics that affect your experiences in the city of Brea. Whether you live, work, or play here, we're bringing you the information you need to better understand your city. So now, we invite you to listen in as Brea Talks. Hello and welcome. I'm Dan Fenstermaker, and today Brea Talks Jobs in Local Government. And I'm going to be on my best behavior today because joining us from the City of Brea Human Resources Division is our HR Analyst 2, Michelle Munoz. Michelle, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dan. I'm really excited. You know, I've always wanted to be on this podcast. Big fan.
Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So give us a little background on your career and how you got started in HR.
So that's a funny story, actually. I've actually been in public sector for a very long time. I thought, when I was setting up my career goals many moons ago, that I was going to work in community services. I started in community services, and much like many of my HR colleagues in other agencies, I kind of just fell into HR. Mm-hmm. So we had a vacancy in HR in a prior agency, and I was on loan.
Oh.
So it was just, temporary. I was filling a gap, learning some new skills. And, I was going to go back to my day job, which was running the pools and teaching kids how to swim.
Okay, as a lifeguard.
Yeah. So, obviously, just getting, into the community services world. But something happened, and, 12 years later, I'm still in HR. So I didn't stick around community services too long. But so I've been in public sector about 12 plus years, but in HR about 12. So that's a little bit about my background, and I haven't looked back.
Very cool. So you must be happy.
I didn't think that I would be here when I first started in public sector, but I can tell you today with 100% honesty that I wouldn't change my trajectory for anything.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah. So HR kind of gives me something, different every day.
Sure.
And you kind of see a different aspect of public sector.
Sure. I feel like community services carries the name community services, but I feel like it's all community service, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people, myself included, who started in community services. Yeah. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. They kind of are like the starting point. If you want to start in public sector, is like, unless you're in, police or fire, there's other trajectories there. But if you want to work in finance or administrative services or, community development, somehow most people start in community services. Yeah. You're 15 years old, you're going for your first job.
Yeah.
And then something happens down the line, and next thing you know, you're our next accounting manager.
There you go.
It all works out at the end,
Hopefully you got good grades in math.
Well, that's why I'm not in accounting.
All right. Now, so HR is kind of always a punchline when it comes to policing, office policing, so to speak. I even cracked a little joke earlier. But that is kind of unfair because you in HR do so much more than just those things. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, obviously, when you hear HR, sometimes when you hear HR calls, you're kind of worried, you get nervous. But along with all the other things that we do that maybe are not the fun parts of the job, we do a lot of things. A couple of things that HR does in general. We have our recruitment and selection. So we're hiring new talent, we're onboarding the talent. And I call it talent just because now in the time that we're in, we, a lot of agencies are trying to transition to talent acquisition analyst, because we're bringing on the talent, essentially. Benefit administration, anything from medical to leaves, so protected leaves or any type of medical leaves, training and development. Especially here in Brea, we're very big on professional development. So we do have training and development that we do. Obviously, the labor relations, that's probably the part that people may think like that's not the fun part, but
Right.
you know, it has to happen. It's, you know, we're problem solving issues that come about, and obviously
protecting people that need protection.
exactly, and not just the people. HR, we're here to, our customer is internal in the sense of we're not handling the public, but our customer is internal, but it's also the agency. So our customer is the employee and our customer is the agency as a whole.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we're, you know, working with both.
Sure.
And sometimes it has to, you know, do with us coming together and figuring out what the resolution is.
Right.
And then obviously, you know, the other side, the risk management, workers' comp liability. So there's various aspects of HR, and some of them are fun and some of them may not be so fun. But I think at the end, you know, we need all of these various divisions or areas of HR for our employees or our customers to be successful.
Right. You're directly serving those that directly serve the community.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, you're right there. So speaking specifically about jobs in local government, and let's talk a little bit about recruitment efforts and why like a good recruitment strategy. So like you guys don't just throw a bunch of flyers on on traffic signal posts and call it a day. There's a very purposeful strategy involved in your recruitment efforts. Talk about that.
Yeah. So what we do is, obviously, you know, one of the things that we like to do is we always work with our departments, and we currently have 7 departments here at the City of Brea. We have administrative services, community development, community services, fire, management services, public works, and police. So we have 7 big departments, and within those departments are various divisions. And even those departments in general, the divisions may have different needs. So we always want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the hiring manager, the hiring department. And even if they're in the same department, the hiring need may be different, because you may be looking for someone that's more like a general employee or someone that's like a specialized employee. So we always want to make sure that we're working together with the department and or hiring manager to know what is it that you're looking for, or what kind of talent do you want to bring to the table.
Right.
So we work closely with them when we're getting ready to open positions, especially if it's something that's very technical. If it's one that we run very often, that kind of streamlines processes. But, you know, now we have a newer team that we're doing that a little bit more.
I see. So do you have new tech or practices that you're using to achieve these specialized targeted recruitments?
Yeah, so we launched a new platform, so a new applicant tracking system in November of 2022. So I actually joined right before that, and when we were doing that, that was a homegrown system, and it worked great. But this new system, it's with a company that is known pretty much nationwide with government agencies, public sector, nursing schools, you know, that kind of runs the gamut. So we launched the new applicant tracking system in November of 2022, and this has allowed us to kind of increase our recruitment and show, be able to be visible more to, you know, Northern California, Southern California,
further
and even
reach.
further reach, and other, you know, states including. And it's been able to streamline lots of processes. It's been able to allow us to do text messages to say like, hey, check your email. Because obviously, you know, now with technology,
Right.
It's almost like back in the day when you would say like, oh, you need to pay the bill, write a check.
Right.
Well, now it's like people aren't really checking emails. So, hey, you get a text message,
Sure.
you got a message, make sure you log into your account type of thing.
Way more efficient in communication, for sure.
Exactly.
For sure.
And another thing that we do is we kind of partner with social media. So we're lucky enough in our agency that we have a division within one of our departments that is big on social media, and they're very social media heavy. And, you know,
What division is that?
Yeah, I can plug them. Management services, and it's communications and marketing.
Wow.
So yeah.
They sound like a talented group of people over there.
I mean, you know, I wouldn't be here without them today.
Wow. Well, I'll be sure to thank them when I see them.
And by here, I mean this podcast.
Very kind of you. Very kind. It's a good partnership. For sure.
So we're lucky enough to partner not only with our departments, but our divisions within the departments to try to get that message out. And sometimes for those hard to recruit positions, we work with the hiring manager to see if they're part of any groups that we would like to advertise, if there's like a planning group or a finance group. And that also helps us try to reach or market a particular set of candidates.
Sure. Okay. Well, speaking of communications and marketing, I, by the way, did not pay her to say that. So thank you, Michelle. Communications and marketing is a unique division to agencies. Not everybody has that. Not everybody has, a fitness center. HR is kind of pretty much across the board. You're going to have HR in every agency.
Yeah.
So does that come as an advantage? Do you lean on your HR community for tips and tricks, latest trends, et cetera? Does that come into being an advantage for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it does come at an advantage because obviously, like you said, Dan, human resources is everywhere, whether it's public sector or private sector. I think the one thing that is good about being in this public sector organization is that many years ago, and I can't tell you exactly when, Orange County as a whole came together. So all Orange County agencies, including some water districts, some special districts, like OC Vector, things like that. They came together and they formed a human resources consortium. Oh. And, we use that group as networking, training, professional development. So that's just human resources in general. So you have human resources individuals, you have people in risk management, you have managers, you have directors. So it kind of runs the gamut of the people that are in this group. And we get together once a month. We do trainings or we talk about the latest things that are coming out, whether it's new legal updates, or, hey, what are you guys doing for this type of recruitment? Or are you guys having trouble with X? And they are really a great group of people that we use and we run things by all the time. Sometimes the good thing about this group is we've been able to build a rapport, and sometimes you just pick up the phone if we need something cool. Right then and there. It's like, hey, I heard you guys did X, can you tell me, like, what did you guys do? So it's been really good in that sense.
That's awesome.
And it also helps, in networking, and sometimes you meet people and they may be more specialized than a generalist. And what I mean by that is in human resources across the agencies, you have what we like to call generalist and what we like to call specialist. So bigger organizations, you see more like the specialist model, where it's like you may have such a big HR team, and so they're very specialized. So you are only going to be doing recruitments for these departments. You're only going to be doing safety recruitments, or you're only going to be handling benefits.
Got it.
Then you have other organizations that maybe are not as big, or they don't have such a big team, and they're more on the generalist level. So they kind of touch a little bit of everything. So I've been lucky enough and to be in organizations where I've been a generalist. So that's allowed me to touch multiple things. But on the flip side, sometimes there's some things that I'm not familiar with, and I'm able to pick up the phone, call my colleagues at other agencies who I know are specialized in a certain aspect of HR, and kind of pick their brain, sit down with lunch, and even like, hey, can you show me how you guys do this? And, everyone is very willing to like help a fellow HR colleague. Sure.
So. It's kind of like the difference between like an elementary school teacher who kind of teaches their students all the subjects, and then a very specialized like high school or teacher or college professor that just like specializes in just one particular
I'm just
subject.
doing calculus today.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, not me personally.
You should have gone into finance. You should have.
No, but yeah, exactly like that. And I think that we're lucky to belong to this group and to use each other as resources, not only to grow, but also to make our agencies better, because we come together and we say, like, even for surveys, we're able to use our connections and get those responses quickly to be able to provide back to our agencies, so we can either maybe streamline a process, make it better, or maybe we need to change it altogether.
Sure.
So it's been really helpful.
So talking about processes and the group of agencies that you just spoke of, I'm sure that something that's come up quite a bit recently in the last few years, especially coming out of the pandemic, is how the job market's kind of flipped a little bit. in terms of in its trends, in terms of being able to, increase the volume of applications and quality candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about trends as it's been the last couple of years.
So, yeah, I mean, kind of like what you said, we've seen such a change in trends in employment as a whole. And I won't even say just in public sector, but I think employment as a whole has changed. Even walking to restaurants post pandemic or right when things were opening, you would see restaurants not open all day because they didn't have the staffing.
Right.
So in public sector, I think what started happening is people started to reevaluate what was important to them. And I think we saw that in the market in the sense of like, some people may have decided, you know what, I work in X location and I live in X location, so I think I'm going to find something closer. I think we started seeing a lot more of that, a lot of people wanting to have more of a work-life balance. And, that is something that maybe we weren't quite ready for. And, obviously with the pandemic, various employment models changed. And some things, you can bring to a public sector and some things just wouldn't work, because at the end of the day, we are a public sector. We're here to serve the community, and everyone who works here is here for the purpose of serving the community.
Right.
Would it make sense for us to shut our doors and do things, via email or things like that? So there are some things that, if you are starting your career in public sector, you really have to know what you're getting into, just because if your hope and aspirations are to be able to be at home all week and just be in your home office, that might not be something that is realistic. But, there are opportunities out there. But I think at the end of the day, working for a public agency, we're here to serve the community. We're here to interact. We're here to put on special events. We're here to serve the seniors and the youth with our youth programs. And I think that's one of the things that it's great about working in a public sector, is you get to interact and, build rapport with your community.
Right. No, absolutely. 100%. I mean, that's, I know I got into doing this because I, started in community services, but kind of in the idea that, I had dreams and aspirations of Hollywood, and at the same time, I loved serving the community, and now I get to, and not in Hollywood, but that's okay, because I'm happy and I'm doing what I love, and I get to serve the community at the same time. So it's, it's fulfilling in two ways for me. So it's great. Yeah. In terms of like the challenges that kind of came out of, I don't know if it's necessarily out of the pandemic or out of the things that came out of the pandemic, but the idea that, they used to say when a job opened in local government, there'd people be lining up down the street. And that's not to say that they're not interested anymore. First of all, it's all online now, so nobody lines up for anything. You don't even line up to go to the movies anymore. So that's,
this is true.
if you go to the movies anymore. But the idea that people used to compete for jobs, and now jobs compete for people. I mean, you've definitely noticed that in terms of like, trying to get the right applicants to apply.
Yeah, I do have to agree with you on that. People are still competing for the jobs. It's not that they're not. I think now where maybe, 10 years ago, you would have the candidates who were wanting to make those leaps and you wouldn't see as many drop off.
Right.
But now, because the market is so competitive, you have people that may have multiple offers.
Sure.
And then they get to evaluate on, maybe it's not necessarily this aspect of the position at this agency, but maybe this is more important to me. So then they get to kind of have an evaluation within themselves and say, like, what do I want more?
Right.
And I think that's one thing that agencies as across the board, they see that's where the struggle lies, is that because there's so many positions out there and there are so many talented people out there, the candidates or the applicants really have the opportunity to say no.
Right.
Where before, because there weren't so many positions open,
Right.
You, as soon as you saw something, you were like, I'm going for it, and I'm gonna.
Something else along these lines of trends that we talked a little bit offline last week, and something you said that I thought was super interesting was that you said 5 years ago, if you saw an application with a ton of prior job experience, that you would it would be like a huge red flag in the human resources community in terms of like, why can this person not stay in one place? And that's just not the case anymore, because like you were just alluding to, people really have the power now to soul search within their careers, change careers, do complete 180s in terms of their lives out of the pandemic. People are they want to be happy. And it's true. I think now, the biggest thing that we do is we always want to make sure that whatever job we are hiring for, we have a set list of minimum requirements for each position. That's the most important. It's like, do they meet the minimum requirements? And sometimes you're going to meet the minimum requirements with the 5 agencies you worked with. And, before, that wasn't that common. You saw people having longevity with organizations. Not to say that organizations are bad. I think it's just applicants really seeing what is out there and what, they want to do. I know I can speak for me personally. I wanted to have exposure in other aspects of human resources, and coming to this agency, it allowed me to do other things that I may not have had the opportunity to do at that time. And I think for me, that was, being in a place for such a long time, that was one thing I was so nervous about. I was like, I haven't, gone to many places, and this is the only place that I'm, I was comfortable. But I, 2.5 years later, here I am, and I've had the opportunity to do so much more to grow, my tool belt, and to not only bring something, hopefully bring something good to this organization, but then also, give me the ability to serve my customers with, the knowledge that I had previously and the new knowledge I'm gaining here. So I had at a previous agency, I had a job that I went for, and I didn't get it, and that's okay, because everything worked out way better for me in the end. But in the moment, I was kind of disappointed. And I just remember one of my supervisors saying that it's a smaller agency, and in order to grow, you might need to grow somewhere bigger, somewhere else. And I was like, well, I don't want to go anywhere else. And so, but took the leap, came here, and you're right. It's just, it's a really great place, and I've grown tremendously, and I'm glad that you have too in the couple of years you've been here.
I can't say that I regret any of the choices I've made in my career. I think, but, on the flip side, I've been very fortunate to have the opportunities I've been given, not only thinking that my career was going to be in community services forever, but to have the opportunity to learn HR kind of from, beginning to end, to grow so much in prior jobs, and then also then come here and continue to grow. I think one thing about human resources that people may or may not know is that we're continuously learning, continuously growing. And the reason for that is because, on the not so fun side, we have rules and regulations that we have to abide by. We have federal laws that get passed every year that we have to
make sure. Laws, man.
Yeah, we have to make sure we regulate. So it's not, it's not like we can do HR the same every year. Sometimes we have to pivot, and we have to be able to be flexible, adapt. And I think that's really important. And I think that's why it's another reason why I really like working not only in HR, but in this division, because it's not the same thing every day. Sometimes you're going to be very focused on workers' comp. Sometimes you're going to be very focused on recruitment, and sometimes something else is going to come, and it makes the time go by faster. But then also, it gives you that experience to be able to do multiple things.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Let's talk about if somebody was to apply. I mean, let's set aside public safety for a second, police and fire, because they're a little unique.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about the process. Take me through like the hiring process. So somebody finds a job they'd like to apply for with the city of Brea. You know what? We'll just stop there. What do they do? What do they do first?
Okay. So now that we have our new, we call it a careers page, you want to go and make sure you visit the website. So it's www.governmentjobs.com/careers/Brea, and that will take you directly to all our online positions that we have on right now live. And we have a continuous queue going, so that changes fairly often, where we have positions that close and positions that open. So anyone who's interested in joining this team, go on the website and take a look and submit your application. As a recruitment, full life cycle of a recruitment, we talked about it a little bit before. So one of the initial things that we do is we prep with the department and our hiring division manager, and we want to make sure we know what is the kind of talent that you're trying to, get. What are some of the things that we want to focus on? So we start having that dialogue, we start drafting job bulletins, we start figuring out, do we want to do supplemental questionnaires? And that helps us for a couple of reasons. It helps us go through the applicants. If we have a big applicant pool, kind of helps us filter them. But then it also helps us get a little bit more into, do they have the experience that we're actually looking for, So once we meet with the department, know exactly how the recruitment is going to go, what are the phases, are we doing tests, are we just doing oral interviews? Then from there, we draft, finalize, approve the job bulletin, then we go live. With the applicant tracking system that we have now, it has the ability to reach multiple people at a click of a button. So we are very fortunate where we're able to get a high volume of applications. Some of the things that we do after the recruitment is either complete, or as we're going, we start, reviewing applications to make sure, if we have a deadline, then we'll review everything once the deadline passes. Sometimes we have recruitment that, the first 60 viable candidates, after that it's going to close.
Got it.
So once the application review is done, and the applications could also be reviewed from what we like to call subject matter experts from the departments, we finalize a candidate pool that we would like to move forward with.
How long roughly does that take? I mean, give or take. I know that, it varies for sure. But average.
So timelines are a little tricky in the HR world, and I'll tell you why. And I think it's too because of the way that HR has transitioned and now the way the market is. I think before, 10 years ago, maybe even less, you would have a lot more jobs that had opening and closing deadlines, because kind of like what we talked about, people were going and they were like quick to apply for the job. I think now what we're seeing is more of a trend of jobs having the continuous language in the sense of like, first 50 qualified applicants, stuff like that, just because some may fill up faster.
Sure.
Some may take a little longer because they are a specialized position. So timelines are a little tricky in that sense, but let's just hypothetically say it's a job that has a deadline, 3 weeks. That's pretty typical, 2 to 3 weeks. From there, the review could take anywhere from a week to 2 weeks.
Okay.
With the new system that we have, it makes it a little bit easier, streamline, but it could take longer if we're looking, if we have a lot of applications.
Right. Or supplemental questions.
Supplemental questions, things like that. So, then from there, we try to do our best, at least my team, because we are have so many jobs that we're either working on that are posted or going to be posted, we're doing our best to kind of forecast when we're going to be doing testing. Because obviously we're small but mighty, but we also cannot be spread across the board. So we try to make sure that even if we have a process going on every single day, we try not to have like multiple processes going on in one day. So we're not spread so thin if something were to happen or we have to get pulled. So there are some weeks that, if you ever come visit us at the Civic Center, you might see a sign that says applications, please check in with reception. So sometimes those signs are there every week, every day of the week. Sometimes they're only there a couple days. But once we have the testing phases all complete, we send everyone who passes will be placed on the eligibility list. And that list is sent to the department, and the department then is able to, go through their process and do their selection. And once an employee is offered a position and they accept, that's the important part, right? Accepting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then it kind of gets kicked back to HR and we start the pre-employment process. So that looks different for candidates as well, depending on what department, what the requirements are for that position. But if we're just talking, entry level position that just needs the background and the medical, that could take a couple weeks. So, on a good, fast recruitment that, has an open and closed deadline, review, testing, pre-employment requisites, you're looking at maybe 2 months. But like I said,
there's a lot happening.
There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
Timelines vary because if you didn't get the applicants you wanted, you may extend it.
Right.
So kind of like what I said earlier, HR, we're very flexible. We learn to pivot.
Sure.
And so we like to give timelines when we can, but sometimes, the timeline doesn't work.
Well, at the end of the day, you're not just going to fill a spot with a candidate just because they were the best of the pool that we have standards. Mm-hmm. Our community demands and deserves the highest level of service from us, and so we want to make sure that we're holding to that with the talent, with the level of talent that we have here. And so we're not settling. If we don't have to, we can wait until we get the right candidates applied.
And sometimes that does happen. Sometimes we have to go back to the drawing board and we have to figure out, okay, what can we do different? What can we do to attract maybe a different level of candidate pool? And if it's a very specialized position that requires certain certifications, sometimes, that may take time. And I think that those are always the conversations we have with the divisions and the hiring managers is if it doesn't work out the first time, it's like, okay, what else can we do? Or maybe we didn't advertise the way we wanted to in the beginning, or maybe we didn't think about advertising a certain way. Now we do it the second time.
Right.
So
get it together, communications and marketing. Where are you?
No, but I think we're always trying to find different ways to fill the talent, because at the end of the day, our biggest victory in HR is when we fill those positions, when they stay, and the longevity of it all. Sometimes because someone makes the decision they don't want to, maybe they want to go closer to home. Maybe they decide to leave within a year, 2 years, 3 years. And that's fine. We'll get back to the drawing board and start over. But I think for us, like when we have that new person come through, and after we've done all the testing and all the interviews, and it's like, oh, this is the person. This is the person we've been waiting for for the last couple, weeks. And when they're successful in their respective divisions and their departments, I think that's the best part, because it's like we were part of that. Yeah. We were part of making that
very
happen.
Very gratifying.
Yeah. So we're not necessarily are front facing and dealing with the residents, but we're the avenue to help bring those people to the ones who do deal with the residents, people at the front counter, people at the community centers, police and fire. They're all, very front facing and dealing with the community more. And we have a little part of that, bringing on the talent. So that's kind of our reward.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Real quick,
Mm-hmm.
benefits of working in Brea. Go.
Well, I think benefits working in Brea, we're a very good organization in the sense of we do, you have that family feel, but you have that ability to grow, and we work together, all departments across the board. If something needs to get done or you need to collaborate, in the time that I've been here, at least, everyone has been able to work together, call somebody up and say, hey, we have X going on. Can you help us? And it's like everyone's open and willing. And, obviously that kind of environment is an awesome environment because you never want to dread going to work. And
Sure.
I can tell you, I'm only speaking for myself. I never dread coming to work. I'm always ready and seeing what the day has to offer.
Definitely.
And then, other than that environment, we have great benefits. We have, work in a public sector. So you have things like a pension. You have things that, savings accounts that will be for when you retire.
Right.
Salaries are also good, And I think that that's something you're almost investing in your retirement because, if you work in another place, not saying that working private or working anything is bad, but
Right.
You have that ability to start putting a little bit away
Right.
now
Right.
and seeing what you want to do. And with public sector, you may start off in community services, but you end up, in the city manager's office,
Who knows? That's
there's
right.
so many opportunities in a public sector agency that you have to maybe I started off here, but I didn't like it. I'm going somewhere else, or vice versa. We have so many people that start in an organization, in a division, and then, they decide they want to go to fire, or they're, PD, and they're now our public safety, members. And so that's also, exciting to see when they grow and they,
Right.
decide to see what their career is.
Right.
So, there, other than other benefits that we have, I think in general, it's just a good place to work, good people, good environment. And I think, as a whole, Brea has a good reputation, I
Yes.
think at least in public sector. So that's always good. You want to go somewhere where other agencies look to you and say like, oh, that's, Brea, it's a good organization, I know X person, or I work with this person. And
Sure.
one thing that I can tell you is a lot of things that I see is when we're doing recruitments and we have raters from the outside helping us, I think especially when we've had internal candidates, a common comment is like, man, you guys have some really good people that work here.
That's cool.
And that's good because, if they're successful in that promotional opportunity, that's awesome. But if not, it's like, hey, like they are saying that we have good people that work here, and eventually like there will be something else for them if
Sure.
they weren't successful. So
Sure.
I know that's something I've heard in a few panels.
No, that's a great testament, right? These
Yeah.
are people that have never met or seen any of our
Yeah.
employees, and then they end up on a panel with them, and they're like, wow, these people know their stuff. They're
Yeah.
very talented, and
Yeah.
you got a tough decision to make.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a good problem to have.
That is a good problem to have, and I think that we've seen that, and so I also take that as something that we've helped with being able to bring them on in the first place, and then obviously their individual departments or divisions, like nurturing them, mentoring them, and hopefully eventually they'll. At the end of the day, we want people to be here, for a long time. We want
Sure.
longevity,
Sure.
and it might happen for a lot of people. It might not, in the sense of like, depending on what they want to do with their career. But, we do have a lot of people here in our
Right.
agency that have been here for a very long time. And that
Yeah.
speaks volumes.
Absolutely.
So I think that is kind of what a lot of people want. They want to find their career path. They want to find their home outside of their
forever
home.
job. Yes.
Yeah, they want to find their forever job outside of their home and their family.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's something special that we have here.
That's great. There you have it. Brea is not the worst place to work. It might be the best, according to human resources analyst to Michelle Munoz. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on and talking. People don't know this. Michelle and I go actually way back.
We do.
We went to high school together, and we worked at the prior agencies that we were referring to. We were both at the same agency.
Yes.
And then our paths crossed again when she came on board here a couple years ago.
7 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy. That's another thing with public sector. And this is like a little tidbit is you never know who you're going to cross paths with. Sometimes you're going to have people that you start off with, and then years later, they might be your colleague. You might be their boss. They may be your boss.
That's right.
Public sector is small in that sense.
So be nice.
So yes, that's
true.
Be nice. Be respectful.
It's a community within a community.
Collaborate, because you never know who you're going to be working with. I had the pleasure to work with Dan before, and then when I came here I was like, hey, I know you. So now we're working together, and clearly he has got to do a lot more fun things here. And the podcast that we're on right now, we probably wouldn't have had the chance.
The leash they have me on here is slightly longer.
You're just building your toolbox. You're being able to bring something else to the organization.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. Thank you again for coming on. This is very interesting and a fun conversation.
Yeah.
That's it for this episode of Brea Talks. This episode and all episodes of Brea Talks can be heard wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on Brea TV, the City of Brea's YouTube channel, and our new Brea TV app. Check it out on the App Store, the Apple App Store. I believe it's on Apple TV. Fire and Roku, and I believe Android as well. So that's the Brea TV app just released. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening in as Brea Talks.